climbing frame. Their parents were right there with them, diving in to tickle them or to help them down the slide. He felt optimistic, for the first time in a while, that everything would work out all right, that he'd be messing around with Millie like that in a few years, side by side with his partner. He was still watching them when a figure emerged through the trellised archway from the road. He glimpsed her at the edges of his vision, registering long hair of a brilliant red. Part of him picked up something else, that she looked grubby, maybe, and he turned to look. Jonah realized that the grubbiness was blood, that her t-shirt was daubed in it, her hands covered in a coating of rust-red almost up to her elbows. For a moment, he wondered whether this was what sleep deprivation did to you, whether it was blurring the boundaries between the innocence of his family life and the terrible violence of his work, whether this might be no more than a hallucination. But then other diners started to turn, and a quiet began to wash over the garden. After a few instants, there was only the light buzz of music from inside the pub and noises of effort from the two children as they kept climbing, oblivious. The blood was real, he thought. And having understood, he tried to work out where it had come from. There was no evidence that the blood was hers, no bloom of it to show a source, just a great river of red-brown down her t-shirt, and daubs of it over her hands. Jonah tried, swiftly, to work out whether she was in trouble, whether she'd just witnessed a terrible accident. She was young, he thought, a teenager, and she came to a complete stop a few paces into the garden, as if she'd run out of the momentum needed to keep going. There was no question in Jonah's mind that he should be the one to step forwards. The moment this young woman had entered the garden, she had become his responsibility. Before that, really, from the moment the blood had been shed on her. She gazed around at the drinkers with a strangely unconcerned expression. There was no shame, no anxiety, but also none of the signs Jonah had come to expect from a girl who had experienced trauma, none of the usual ones at least. She looked, if anything, slightly amused. He got to his feet and took a step forwards, his hand going to the handle of the pram to keep it near to him. "Are you all right?" he asked her. There were hurrying footsteps from the pub. In the periphery of his vision, he saw a waitress emerge from the door with a pair of plates, and then falter as she saw the scene in front of her. The girl smiled at him, though it wasn't a warm smile. It was almost as if she'd been expecting him to ask, and found it funny. "I could do with a drink," she said. Jonah nodded. "All right, come to the bar and I'll get you one." He felt very much aware, as he escorted her into the pub, that everyone was now watching both of them, that they were now imagining that he knew her, assuming that this was somehow his fault. It was lucky that Jonah had never cared that much about what most people thought. The young woman moved ahead of him into the pub, and he lifted the pram over the threshold and followed her. He became momentarily blind in the dimness before he shoved his sunglasses up onto his head. The girl was already walking towards the bar. There was, as ever, no real sense of a queue, just a mass of people near the bar, all immersed in their menus and shooting each other occasional side-eyed glances in case they lost their place. But they made way for him, or actually, for her. "Lemonade?" Jonah asked, his eyes on the nearest barman. He could see that the guy had understood, that he was going to serve this blood-smeared girl next, no matter who was waiting. "Sure," she said. "A pint, with ice." Jonah watched her as the barman began to move. He studied the pale eyes as she looked around again. Her tall frame, the lean, strong look of her. "I'm Jonah," he said, and then after a moment he added, "I'm a detective. I work with the police." She looked back at him, her gaze showing no curiosity. "Keely." "Do you need our help?" He could hear the lemonade hissing into the glass now.